Integral Development. The Secretary General, will also join us, and Ramdin, who is on his way. And thank you very much. And we thank the Chief of Staff for joining us. As today, you all know, this meeting holds special significance because it marks the final regular meeting of the Permanent Council under our chairmanship, which we've had the privilege of holding during the first half of 2026. In today's meeting, we will conclude a series of thematic dialogues on energy security and some institutional matters of the utmost importance, including in the commemoration of CIDI's anniversary. We will also address the overhaul of the Management Board of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development, and a review of the Permanent Council's annual report. With that in mind, I hereby call this meeting to order, and we will move on to our consideration of item 1 on our draft order of business, document CD/OD 172/26, the draft order of business, which we put to the consideration of the delegations. There being no comments, it is hereby adopted. Before we begin our deliberations for today's meeting, it is a very special honor for me to extend a formal welcome to Ambassador Isabelle Valois, Executive Secretary for Integral Development. This is the first time she will address this council in that capacity. As the chair of CD, we have had a very fruitful working relationship with Ambassador Valois. And in addition to extending her our warmest congratulations, we believe that this adds to the consolidation of CD and other agencies that work here at headquarters. You should be rest assured that you will have our support, and whoever comes next will support the Secretariat. And without further ado, I'm pleased to give the floor to you, Madam Ambassador.
Okay, gracias, bonjour.
Thank you.
Lanza, Chair of CD, it is a pleasure and an honor to share this table with you. Carmen Lucia de la Pava and to the Secretary General Ramdin, thank you for your presence and thank you for your endorsement and confidence. Excellencies, permanent and alternate representative, permanent observers, colleague and general of the General Secretariat. Allow me to begin by saying thank you. Thank you for the welcome I have received over these first few weeks and for the openness with which each of you approached me to share your vision of what is the Secretariat, what it should be, and what it could do. I take on this responsibility with a clear conviction. Integral development is not a secondary chapter to Inter-American agenda. It is the concrete translation into our life of our citizens of the principle this organization defends. And the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development exists precisely to respond to the priorities that you, the member states, define. Let me direct about how I understand my mandate, at least more and more I understand my mandate. As I mentioned to Ambassador Lanza last week, my task is not to bring an agenda of my own, but to serve yours, to listen to your needs, to identify where hemispheric cooperation creates real value, and to mobilize the capacity of the institution to deliver while also working with member states to help set priorities in line with available resources, broader strategic objective. In saying this, I want to pay tribute to what I have already seen, the human and professional quality of the city team. This is a solid secretariat made of dedicated professionals who believe deeply in the OAS mission. Now I would be less than honest of me to stand before you with words of optimism optimism alone. Also sharing some reflection that these first weeks have allowed me to do so not out of concern, but out of a sense of responsibility, both as someone committed to building realistic foundation, and someone who has been tasked to take a strategic view of CDC. Con permiso, paso el español.
Allow me, I will switch to Spanish, and I say this bluntly. I'd like to be direct. I have seen the need for an essential discussion between the Secretariat and the member states regarding the relationship between the mandates entrusted to us and the human and budgetary resources available to carry them out. This Secretariat has demonstrated remarkable ability to mobilize extra budgetary resources, both in cash and in kind. Nevertheless, structural dependence or reliance on these resources combined with the recurring threat of costs puts pressure on our ability to plan for long term and uphold the commitments we make to you. I would like to be specific. When we lack permanent positions, we invest time, energy, and extra effort into training exceptional talent. Once trained, these talented individuals become attractive to other organizations, which then hire them. We are, in a manner of speaking, a school of excellence for the multilateral system. This is a source of pride, but it is also a warning sign. And I don't say this as a critique. It is an invitation to open and constructive dialogue between those who determine the mandates and those of us who implement them. I am convinced that by working together, we can make a secretariat that is stronger, more predictable, and results-oriented. I would also like to be clear that the determination and scope of priorities is the responsibility of the member states. This work requires rigor, method, and honest reflection on the results we collectively seek. It also involves aligning our ambitions with realistic expectations, given that SETI's resources are limited. This involves difficult decisions about what we do and about what and under what conditions we operate. Timing and context matter, just moving effectively requires sequencing efforts and creating the right conditions for sustainable results. Thus, it is with clarity and responsibility that we will strengthen our collective action. You can count on me to drive this effort toward to foster a frank, open, and constructive dialogue.
The last 2 weeks, I have had the privilege meeting several of you, and each conversation had been truly enriching. My systematically, I will be requesting meeting with each and every delegation here present, not as protocol, not as a formality, but to listen to you genuinely, to learn your priorities, to receive your recommendation, to understand your concern, as well as for you to know me better. Your voice and your engagement is what set the course of this Secretariat. The General Assembly will be an excellent opportunity to meet. I look forward to, with enthusiasm to greeting each of you there and to continuing to build the relationship I trust and hope I have with every delegation. Si vous me le permettez,
If I may now, I'd like to conclude in French. Excellencies, I take on this role with my feet firmly anchored on the ground, my heart in the right place, and my mind fully mobilized. Do so with lucid vision of the challenges ahead, but also with great confidence in the team around me and the willingness for cooperation that I feel from every one of you in this room today. Integral development in our hemisphere is a cause that deserves our efforts, and my team will work alongside you toward that end. Integral development is not simply a pillar of the Organization of American States. It's the foundation, the very foundation of lasting progress, sustainable progress in economics, rights, democracy, and security. It is a comprehensive approach which is consistent that will provide true progress that leads to reducing inequality and strengthening social cohesion and consolidate sound institutions, But integral development goes even further. It encompasses decisive challenges for the future: democratic security and stability, which prosperity is impossible, environmental transition, as well as climate. And it all compels us to think more deeply about our models, transformations linked to artificial intelligence and innovation, which are already reshaping our economies and our societies. Well-framed changes are not threats, but powerful leverages of efficient policy, cooperation, and sector and civil society, all converging towards the same goal: constructing societies that are safer, that are fairer, that are more prosperous over time, and resolutely turn towards the future. And at that scale, SETI is clear. Carry within the Organization of American States, all member states, a common vision based on cooperation, commitment, concrete for our citizens. And I will fully commit myself to this with firm determination alongside you with my team. Thank you.
Gracias.
And thank you very much, Ambassador, for your word. We would like to reiterate and after having been chair, the CD and plays a key role in matters that are of utmost importance to our region: prosperity, development, security. So the member states, of course, will offer you support and also financially so that you can carry out your work. I wish you the best in carrying out your duties. The permanent mission of the to the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. As Chair of the Commission of Partnership for Development, and on behalf of the delegation of the Dominican Republic, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Ambassador Isabelle Valois as Executive Secretary for Integral Development, SEDI. We are very pleased that you are taking on this position for your vast experience in the area of cooperation and diplomacy. We are sure you will achieve the expected success and carrying out the work of the Secretariat. As chair of the CPD, I have had the opportunity to work very closely with the Secretariat. You will find a solid Secretariat with high-quality human capital who will support you in your new mission. For joining this permanent council as at a very special time. CEDA is celebrating its 30th anniversary, and we coincide with the importance of celebrating this important accomplishment throughout 2026. There are many organizational challenges await you, but you have the support as member states. We're committed to strengthening CEDA in all member states, to strengthen our work, and to make this commitment memorable. Thank you and welcome. Thank you. And the Ambassador of Mexico has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. On behalf of the delegation of Mexico and as Chair of the Mechanism for Informal Consultations on CEDI, we would like to extend organs. We make the most of the opportunity to reiterate our commitment to strengthen CEDI and SEDI and to promote high-level dialogue and the negotiating capacity to improve working methodologies to maximize synergies. It is the responsibility of the member states to ensure efficiency and effectiveness so that CEDI can provide specific results and fulfill its commitment to promote development in the Americas and to contribute to the elimination of extreme poverty. Mexico has been a support in 2020 since 2023 actions to strengthen together with a group of countries. We establishment of a mechanism for informs through a general adopting measures in the agreement on partnership for development actions. This led to a plan that has been implemented over time. This year, the mechanism with the participation of Bahamas, Brazil, Chile, El Salvador, Guatemala, Panama, Peru, the Dominican. Informal meetings of CD, we continue to work towards strengthening and to observe the 30th anniversary of the establishment of this council. Ambassador Valois recognized your contributions in building consensus to continue to implement measures to strengthen CD and to consolidate open and substantive dialogue among member states in this area. You can count on the mechanism and our delegation as we promote integral development to promote all of the peoples of the Americas. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we will now give the floor to the delegation of Canada.
Gracias, merci, Monsieur le Président. Le travail du
Thank you, sir. The work of the Executive Secretary for Integral Development plays a determining role so that the OAS can remain facing towards the future. Contributions in the area of education, human development, employment, the development of micro and small and medium-sized enterprises, competitiveness, innovation, technology, and sustainable and integral management of water resources, management of disasters, and climate action. All of this will only just gain in importance for the OAS and for each member state present here today.
Valois' 30 years of experience in international development and in diplomacy, working bilaterally and multilaterally, will be invaluable to SETI and the organization. Prior to her tenure as ambassador to Uruguay and more recently as ambassador to Morocco and Mauritania, she oversaw major cooperation programs for the Government of Canada in Global Affairs Canada's Development Innovation Branch and managed cooperation programs around the world. As such, Ambassador Valois is uniquely qualified to ensure that SETI achieves its goals of directly improving the lives and livelihoods across our hemisphere in collaboration with all member states. Canada is very pleased to welcome Madame Valois to the OAS and to extend our heartfelt congratulations to her as she undertakes this next chapter of her illustrious career. Thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. We now give the floor to the delegation of Guatemala. Thank you very much, sir. Guatemala would like to also welcome most cordially Executive Secretary Madame Valois and appreciate her contribution to integral development. Her arrival comes at a particularly important time as we're celebrating the anniversary of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, where we're looking at what's been achieved, but we're also thinking about challenges and opportunities in the future. We are convinced that her vast knowledge and experience of the Inter-American system will provide useful contribution to continue making progress with the work of the Secretariat, creating greater coordination amongst the various mechanisms of CD, and that will contribute to member states' mandates being translated into concrete results. To that end, we are convinced that at the helm of CD, she will strengthen technical cooperation, the mobilization of resources, and strategic avenues. We also trust that the Executive Secretariat will play a key role in building the strategic plan for the organization 2026 to 2030, and which we have commended to her for contributions created by CD. In this way, we can ensure that the vision and the priorities of integral development are properly addressed. We are prepared in Guatemala to work closely and constructively with you, ma'am, and your team in order to make this body and different processes and the Inter-American mechanisms all means to come together and contribute to working towards the goals and needs of this organization. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And now give the floor to the Ambassador Mendez of Belize. But first, I've been told that Madame Valois will need to withdraw from the room briefly. So I just wanted to thank her for joining us in this common exercise of her leadership in CD, and for the first vice chair of CD, for which we have requested this ongoing dialogues. So I want to give you the floor. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your very kind words, which are practically undeserved, but thank you anyway. Mr. Chair, I want to join the delegation of Belize's voice to the warm welcome being extended to Ambassador Isabel Valois, the new Executive Secretary of SEDI. For Belize, and I would dare say for most of the countries in the Caribbean region, although I'm not speaking for them right now, and for the Central American regions, which share a menu of concerns and needs and aspirations. The work of SEDI has always been of particular importance. So we are fortunate that we have always, as Belize, enjoyed a really good relationship with SEDI, and I know that we will continue to have that. But being Belizeans, we're also very practical. And beyond the commemoration of the anniversary of SEDI, a quick scan of the horizon reveals a particularly challenging moment for our Americas and for the issues that we deal with. But everybody knows that wherever there is a challenge, whenever there is a problem, there is also an opportunity. So I think that what we need to do now together is to identify and harvest those opportunities in the very challenging space that is before us. We have every confidence that your tremendous experience in this space of development will be a valuable asset for, certainly for the Organization of American States, but also our countries, because the challenges that we face, we cannot overcome them together. So we look forward to look for the silver lining in those challenges before us and to making them yield positive results for our countries. Thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. We would also like to welcome the Secretary General Ramdin, who had his last session during this chairmanship of CD. And I now give the floor to the delegation of Peru. Thank you very much, sir. Good morning, one and all. Mr. Secretary General, the delegation of Peru will Ambassador Valois at the beginning of assuming your responsibilities at the helm of Executive Secretariat. We wish you every success in undertaking this important responsibility. I trust that under your leadership and with your experience, the Executive Secretariat will continue to promote dialogue.
Gracias.
We now give the floor to Ecuador. Ambassador, welcome. What role at this historic moment should a role play a brilliant woman with a brilliant trajectory behind her in the diplomatic arena? A woman who's at the helm of the secretariat, such as the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, SEDI, of the OAS. That's her responsible to continue strengthening the work that we share. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should like to say that you can count on Ecuador for our common endeavor of promoting activities and programs that meet the needs of our peoples in the Americas and to make progress with the development agenda based on results. Close cooperation with Executive Secretariat and member states is key for coordinated action and to make sure that that action matches the priorities as a whole. For that reason, if I may, summarize those efforts that are the minimum and also a great dialogue, technical cooperation, dialogue, management of funds, strategic partnerships, and with the implementation of the plan, promoting inclusive economies, strengthening development goals, and specifically improving in the areas of education and culture for development, and specifically in the coming weeks, We will have an opportunity to work particularly closely on the occasion of the 12th ministerial level meeting, which we will be welcoming in Quito on the 21st and 22nd of July. You are most welcome to the Republic of Ecuador. We would be most pleased to receive you and the entire team of the organization, as well as delegations of member states. We are sure that we will continue working closely together with the Executive Secretary and the Secretariat for the development of the Secretary and her whole team. And I'd also like to take this time to acknowledge them at this new chapter. We wish you every success, and you can get full support and collaboration. Thank you. Ambassador, says the chair. I now give the floor to the delegation of the United States.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. On behalf of the United States, it is a pleasure to welcome you, Ambassador Valois, to our meeting as Executive Secretary for Integral Development. My delegation will learn more about your vision for the organization's development pillar, and we welcome the opportunity to work collaboratively with other states during your tenure. Additionally, we welcome your thoughts and insights on the strategic plan that Secretary General has proposed, as the work undertaken by both CD and SETI supports a core and vital pillar of this organization, which is an integral part of the region's shared success. Strong leadership with a clear sense of purpose and direction is essential as we work together to deepen regional relationships, partnerships, and deliver meaningful results for our people. Furthermore, the development pillar is foundational to the organization's mission, democratic governance, and shared prosperity our region strives towards. The United States is hopeful that under your leadership, SETI will continue to strengthen between neighbors who share not just geography, but a commitment to democracy and shared prosperity. Welcome and congratulations on your appointment. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to Madam Secretary so that you can address the topics that we've raised in this session. You have the floor, ma'am.
Very much. Good morning to all permanent representatives and delegates, distinguished ambassadors, chairman. Let me begin by recognizing the chair for his leadership in terms of CD, an important institution within the OAS family. As chair of CD, we have seen a very strong focus on energy, which will continue. It's an important element of any society that can flourish in a meaningful way, because without energy, it's not possible. At the same time, we know that energy is a critical challenge right now for many countries because of the prices of oil and as a consequence for goods and services in our societies. So I'm very pleased that Ambassador chose this topic as central to his chairmanship, and I want to congratulate him for that leadership and for his chairmanship and for our team at within the Secretariat. I want to welcome, of course, Ambassador Isabel Valois as the new Executive Secretary of SETI and related bodies. I don't do that lightly because we had several discussions, and I think Ambassador Valois brings a lot of knowledge, practical knowledge, hands-on knowledge in this position, and I hope able to build that team in a strong way so that the delivery will demonstrate for all member states. I take the opportunity to thank Barbara Kochwa, who has been acting in that position for a while, as well as all the other team members, the directors, for contribution in the past couple of months as the work continued. So thank you very much as a team. Oh, Mark is sitting at the table, great. Thanks. Let me say this more substantively. Ambassador Valois, in our discussion, highlighted two matters. which in my view are critical. One is a request to Ambassador to, after she settles in well and organize herself, to look at the organizational layout of SETI, and also to look how we integrate the different components within SETI much more in a functional way, supporting synergies and working together. This is one of the objectives of this leadership, is that we do not have silos, but work integral. Is that we connect not only within SETI, but also within the Secretariat. And that has a logical meaning, which I'll come back to shortly. The second matter I requested Ambassador Valois to, or I should say the Executive Secretary, to work on and to present before the end of the year, strategic development, to the development agenda of the Americas. It's an evolving situation. We know we have a diverse landscape when it comes to interest in terms of development in our hemisphere. There are different problems, there are different challenges, some short-term, other much more structured. We need to address those in form. The OAS is not a major development agency, but it has the political power to raise that momentum on critical issues. Together, strengthen the collaboration within the American system and with other global institutions, we can more resources of the people and to the benefit that and which we need to get. And I hope before the end of the year we'll have that so that we can share that with you, get your input of our strategic plan going forward. So that will require possibly organizational amendments, but as you know, we had agreed that we will look at the organizational chart of this organization in 2027, 2 years after it was initiated in 2025. So we will do that. Now, democracy, security, human rights, and development are not separate. They are interrelated. We know that. We use a nice word for that, Ambassador, mutually reinforcing. And that is true. We have to repeat that statement, but also translate it into concrete ways. And mutually reinforcing in this case means we must work with the Secretariat for Democracy, we must work with multidimensional security, we must work within the development. Sometimes we'll have to give priority to development because that will facilitate the solution in terms of several other problems which we encounter in our hemisphere. So we will have to be very pragmatic and in that sense. I'm happy to hear broad support for development agenda in our membership. What we want to see happening through the OAS in terms of democracy, security, human rights, and development is that we trust free, fair, equal societies with opportunities for all, and that we create a peaceful and a prosperous hemisphere. If we can achieve that, these are very short words, but if we can achieve that, then we have achieved a milestone. I thank you very much, wish you all the best, and count on collaboration of all of us at the Organization of American States. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. And we'd like to thank on behalf of the whole membership of the Council, both for your contribution and for the new Secretary for Development. It's not symbolic. You have conveyed a very clear commitment to development, which we share. I think that many of the problems that we have also carry with them possible solutions if we put ourselves on the paths of shared prosperity and development. So once again, thank you so much and good luck. We will now, and of course, I would like to thank various ambassadors for their presence at the beginning of this session. I think it pays tribute to the Council. Now, we will move on to the next item, which is dialogue among member states on question to action, energy financing cooperation. Thank you to delegations. We will start this dialogue. We are closing this cycle of Dialogues 2026, where we've been focused on financing energy cooperation and the path towards security. This is a critical, we've looked at, there's a common thread generating secure energy throughout the months. The Council has addressed energy, critical infrastructure integration and energy interdependence, critical minerals, energy transition, energy diversification and effectiveness. The presentations of experts and debates and interventions of member states the broad vision of what's needed in order to strengthen energy security while also broadening access and improving sustainability and increasing affordability. To conclude the semester, we will address two but complementary issues about the critical energy situation at this moment in Haiti and the role of the inter-American system and support to contribute to its modernization. The second topic is a synthesis of the work over the first half of this year in the area of energy security, an outline of inputs for the process to prepare the white paper, and of course also to achieve sustainable development. We are indebted to the panelists who will be talking to us about what can be done to help rehabilitate the system in Haiti, an energy system which is so vital for people. The second issue is a synthesis of the work, energy security. We're looking to present some inputs in order to prepare a white paper for the upcoming meeting on sustainable development. So to begin addressing these two different items as part of this dialogue, I'd like to start by giving you some information about what Haiti is grappling with at this time, some of the challenges which are persistent and which limit the economic development and the quality of life of the people in Haiti. Electrical coverage continues to be very low in recent years. Only between 47% and 51% of the population has access to electricity. And supply is furthermore not very reliable. There are chronic shortages and cuts, rationing, which reflect weak energy generation capacity and deficient grid yield. To that, we have to add obsolete infrastructure, significant technical and non-technical losses. There are also aspects that relate to decades of a scarcity of investment, a high dependence on fossil fuels. To that, add the high cost and the volatility of prices to which they are vulnerable. And we have to add the rural zones that to be underserviced. The presentations of the panelists challenges are addressed, how the CAF, IDB, and the World Bank can provide support and normative frameworks to provide solutions for renewable energy sources such as micro solar panels and so forth. We're looking at international cooperation in order to address the challenges in energy security that persist in the hemisphere. To enrich this exchange, today we have participation of two distinguished panelists, and we would like to especially thank them for their presence in the room and virtually. First, I'd like to warmly welcome Mr. Jesus Tejeda. Thank you. And I'd like to thank him for his participation. Mr. Tejeda is the principal sector specialist and advisor in infrastructure and energy division from the Inter-American Development. He has a well-known trajectory in the area of energy, and the Inter-American Development has accompanied us in the design of replacing fossil fuels with electricity for cooking. He will be looking at, and he will provide us with recommendations about the we can support modernization of the sector in order to improve security and supply. Mr. Tejada, once again, thank you. We give you the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for having me here, for having IDB in this discussion of this important topic in the agenda of today. Madame l'ambassadrice Valois, bonjour, c'est un plaisir de vous connaître. Madame, c'est
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to get to know you. Ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, it's also my pleasure to extend greetings to Mr. Caliste, who is participating online. He is the Director General of the National Authority for the Regulation of the Energy Sector, which is very important for the future.
para hacer
I know I have very little time for a brief presentation where I am hoping to convey the key messages in the call for international cooperation, which I'm tasked with doing, and discuss the challenges that the chair mentioned just moments ago. So this is a brief presentation. Let me start. The title, which is very much in line with today's agenda, is how to invest in deep electrification and the use of renewable energies to drive economic development in Haiti. I'm going to begin with a phrase that I took from this year's World Economic Forum. Below, on the horizontal axis, you have GDP per capita in countries, and the vertical axis to the left is the penetration of electricity in an economy beyond what we traditionally understand as the percentage of access to electricity in a country. Here we are talking about deep electrification in economies. If you take a look at the lower left countries, you see the African countries with the lowest per capita income and amongst the lowest in the world. Then we have Latin America. We always note that the rate of electrification or use of electricity in communities is practically 100%. To be more precise, 99%. But the use of electricity in the economy is less than 20%. In other words, 20% of Latin American economies use other types of energy, not electricity. In general terms, it's heat and hydrocarbons, gas. China, Japan, the European Union, the United States, with a utilization rate that is also below 30%. Then you take a look at Norway, which is the upper right in the graph. This is a country with enormous potential for conventional resources, but also which makes the most of renewables. Their energy grid is mostly renewables and is a country that has decided to electrify its economy. This is a sophisticated economy. It has one of the highest per capita income rates in the world. Now, here, you're very familiar with this. Over many years, institutions have looked at renewable energy potential in countries. Solar, hydroelectricity, and that has great potential. Storage and wind, we've been able to get on the ground to determine exact. And then batteries. The use of batteries these days, this is highly developed technology, and we want to make the most of intermittency to be able to send that energy wherever it is needed. Just very quickly, the roadmap moving forward. This is what the government has designed recently to move forward with electrification in the country. We have two different paths. This was validated in a financial analysis conducted by the IDB with a group of financial experts who were planning the expansion. some preliminary studies on the expansion plan confirm these two different paths forward. So rehabilitation, expansion, and modernization of regional systems, existing regional systems, you see that to the right, using renewables, and mobilizing the private sector is key to this. The second path forward is the development of hybrid mini grids using renewables and the private sector, and this can be at any different point of the grid. Here's some clear evidence of what is already being done following these two paths forward. This is a massive project being financed by the IDB in support of the government to modernize the grid in the north of Haiti. This here we're seeing the northwest. This is an industrial park. It has been funded by the US in the past with support from the IDB. This is one of the few areas in the country, and perhaps the only part of the north, that has electricity 24/7. We are expecting to have 3 major solar plants up and running this year. This will reduce greatly the dependence on fossil fuels and will provide stable prices over the next 15 and 20 years. The second path, which is the World Bank is supporting this. This is also being financed by the IDB. In the north, we have projects. In the south, we have 3 more. This is providing jobs to locals, and it's helping to develop the local economy, private sector. The hope is that this year and in the coming year, it will have at least 3,000 to 3,500 more clients connected to the grid. And my final slide, where I endeavor to recap the messages. Here we talk about the challenge before us. If you look at this, you'll see a financial model that's enabled us to conduct hundreds of simulations to arrive at this result. In Haiti, if we look toward electrification of the country, so let's suppose we want to provide electricity to 30,000 households or 100,000 people. This can be done in a number of different ways. If you take a look at the bottom of the graph, you can see renewables. It goes from 0 to 100%, so from left to right. And vertically, we have the cost of electricity for the population. And for me, this is the essential indicator. We have to make investments that enable us to have a rate that is affordable to the community. We cannot have economic development if the prices are unaffordable. So let's talk about 30,000 households. Now, the government can say, okay, let's do thermal or diesel or fossil fuels. That's to the left, where it says 0% renewables. Now, if we do this with them in the private sector is the first one up at the top. That is the blue line. These are the different mechanisms for financing. If it's just the private sector, it's approximately 70 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, if we do it to 100% renewables, we move to the right, and it's 50%. It is possible. But because of the cost of private capital, the rates are going to go up about 80 cents. Now, if the government were to turn to international organizations and say, let's work together, let's partner on this, that's the orange line at the bottom. To the left, the government says, okay, we're going to do it with thermal. The rate for the final user is approximately 60 cents. That's still a bit high, but if I go to 100% renewables, which is what we're discussing here, the project leads to approximately 10 cents per kilowatt hour. That is where we see the greatest economic impact and create the conditions for economic development in a country. Cheap electricity, which then drives the development of local businesses. If it's 100% grants, that would help to close the gap. But there is an intermediate point. That's what we have to find. We need the private sector very urgently involved in the projects and building and in financing, and also in maintenance and operation of any infrastructure that's ultimately built. That could fall on one point on the green line, but what's important is that we have to consider that we need to have a rate that customers can pay, a rate that will drive economic growth. So in this graph, we're not just talking about the electrification, we're talking about deep electrification of the economy. International cooperation must be called upon to help us reach that midpoint. How many resources are available to invest in the grid in the country, and how much international support and cooperation is necessary? And at the IDB, fortunately, we are working on this, and we wanted to thank other international organizations and the private sector for their support. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The floor is yours.
Señor Tejada, por
Thank you, Mr. Tejada, for that very illustrative presentation, which of course leaves us thinking about solutions and how to support that financing and cooperation. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Evanson Calixte. He will be with us online, and he is the Director General of the National Authority for the Regulation of the Haitian Energy Sector. And we'd like to most especially thank him for his presence with us today. From the regulating agency of the Haitian energy sector, Mr. Calixte is offering us a first-hand perspective on the challenges, priorities, and opportunities relating to recovery of the electrical system in Haiti. You have the floor, sir.
Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, one and all. Mr. Chairman, Madam Executive Secretary, ladies and gentlemen ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen representatives of member states, and the technical and financial team, I'd like to start by thanking the Organization of American States, and I'd like to further thank the Inter-American Commission for Integral Development and the Executive Secretary for Integral Development for inviting me here. It provides Haiti with an opportunity to present you not only the challenges in the intersector, but also, and most especially, the trajectory that the government intends to follow towards recovery. The main idea I'd like to share with you today is quite simple. Haiti is not coming just with a diagnosis, as so brilliant was put forth by Mr. Jesus. What we're also showing you is a roadmap. We have identified our priorities. We have identified different areas of intervention, and now we would like to see international cooperation, donors, and technical agencies all coming together around that national vision. The energy sector in Haiti is facing some deep-seated problems. There's a lack of access, insufficient production, a dependency on imported fossil fuels, losses, fragile infrastructure. We're also facing difficulties for recovery and weak institutional capacity and dispersion of action to address this. The government wants to move from a more fragmented approach to a more coordinated approach, one that's measurable and that's results-based. In that spirit, Haiti crafted a roadmap to transform the electrical energy sector to cover the period from 2026 to 2032. This roadmap is the benchmark around which we would like to organize public action, input from partners, and mobilization of the private sector. This roadmap is based on a clear goal, which is to improve access to reliable electricity, ramp up electrification of decentralized areas, rehabilitate existing capacity, strengthening the sector, mobilize realistic funding, and making electricity a true driver of development of the economy and local development. Ladies and gentlemen, the first message that we'd like to send to our partners is one about alignment. We've seen that donors and cooperation or aid agencies, technical partners, have all taken an approach that is in the context of the roadmap now. The idea here, the challenge is not to multiply parallel initiatives, but rather to build a common platform of action around priorities that were defined by the Haitian government. The second message we're sending is about implementation. Haiti needs specific, concrete support. We need to move from planning to implementation. That means we need to finalize projects that are already underway, accelerate implementation, support priorities of centralized electrification, accompany targeted action in the regions, accelerate guarantees, and improve bankability of projects. The third message addresses institutional strengthening. The energy sector cannot be transformed in a lasting manner without stronger institutions that are coordinated better amongst themselves and that are buttressed and able to implement the rules, that can secure the contracts, and that can have effective dialogues with investors. That's why the roadmap provides for buttressing a pilot committee in the energy sector and a thematic working groups. The thematic working groups are important because they will make it possible to provide for technical thinking around the development goals of the sector. An intelligent electrical grid, decentralization, better use of fossil fuel petrol products, better financing, data, public policy, and regulation. We would hope that the OAS, through its cooperation mechanisms, might be able to facilitate experts at the regional level so that they can participate in these working groups, so that they can bring their experience and transfer of know-how. Our fourth message is about training and the transfer of skills. The energy transformation and transition in Haiti cannot be done just with financing and equipment. It also requires local skills and competence. Technicians, regulators, managers of the grids, developers of projects, specialists in tariffs, experts in energy data and planning, in mini grids and in project financing. So we would like to see training be considered as a key priority by our regional partners and the donors. And in that regard, support could take various forms. We'd like to congratulate here the IDB for the training that was provided for our executive level staff in the power sector, institutions in the sector, exchanges with other regulators in the region, and support for a national plan and reinforcing the collection of energy data, tariff regulation, contracts of residue, mini grids, and renewable energies. We need training in all of these areas for skills in these areas. And the last message relates to financing. The roadmap recognizes the fact that public financing alone is not enough. We need mixed financing. We need to bring public resources and concessional aid, guarantees, targeted subsidies, private capital, all need to be brought together along with private investment. But in order to attract private investment, you have to reduce risk, clarify the rules, provide security, improve the bankability of projects. So that's why inter-American cooperation can play such a determining role. And so we would like to see it contribute to the mobilization of a regional approach around three major priorities. The first one is to support guarantee mechanisms and risk reduction. The second revolves around supporting structuring around priority. And third, facilitate inter-Haitian dialogue, financing, and aid agencies support. It's also important to underscore that the roadmap is not just about access to economic development. Electrification needs to support productive use, such as agriculture, local production, supply chains, water, small-scale industry, mobility. For example, in the south of Haiti, we've seen that we have more than 1 million motorcycles. So electric motorcycles are becoming a major factor. Become a way to create revenue, generate revenue to. And in that context, our request vis-a-vis the OAS and our expectations are very clear. We hope to gain support to implement the roadmap. We have institutional support, support for training, mobilization of regional expertise, and contribution to partners' alignment of efforts around national priorities. Haiti is not asking for a dispersed approach. We need structured cooperation around a clear national framework. We want each partner to be able to identify where their support can be best in regional networks, financing, training, guarantees. So to conclude, I want to stress one, and that is the roadmap is an action instrument. It goes in one direction. It sets priorities, proposing a framework for coordination. It's not just time for discussion for Haitians. We need to move to action, as you said in your title of this item. Coordinated action, partners coming together, and implementation. At the level of the Haitian government and the National Authority for Regulating Energy, we are prepared to work with the OAS, with member states, the IDB, the World Bank, the CAF, cooperation agencies. We are prepared to work with all of them to transform that roadmap into concrete results for the benefit of the Haitian people. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Calite. Very far-reaching and clear presentation. Shows us that cooperation and the support of federal organizations must always come under Haitian leadership. And you have a very clear roadmap for the development of your electrical grid, and I think it was quite interesting. Now would like to offer the floor to the delegations for any questions, any observations, anything you may wish to ask our panelists.
Bien, no tenemos aquí.
I see no floor, so I am going to my prerogative as chair, and taking advantage of the fact that we have these two excellent panelists. First, I'd like to ask Mr. Tejada, who's here at the table, the role of the IDB and what role the OAS can play to help Haiti improve its electrical grid. Yes, Chair. I think the spectrum for collaboration is enormous. And Mr. Colista shared the entire part having to do with local institution strengthening and improvements to education to ensure the sustainable development for the roadmap that has been devised by the government looking forward. There are a number of different mechanisms that the IDB is implementing: knowledge transfer, Sal-Sals cooperation. We are endeavoring to bring experts from the region of countries that have traversed a similar path. We also want to move toward 100% renewables. We have examples in the region. The excellent experiences and know-how of countries are part of the cooperation we are bringing to Haiti. There are challenges in education and institution strengthening, something that's highly critical that I did not present due to the time constraints. It was about the private sector. Conditions in the country need to be improved to attract private capital. There is a World Bank program that's called Be Ready. It studies conditions in countries and is looking at Haiti to improve these. So imagine if we had a single window for all the bureaucracy, all the red tape, development of projects. That would be incredible. Institution strengthening, not just from the sector. And these sector institutions don't operate in a silo. We need other institutions that will be involved in construction permits, in environmental permits and licenses. We need to have a single platform for that, and this would help to build trust. France is one of the countries that has brought the most FDI from Europe. And they remarked that the government of France has moved toward facilitating investment in the country. So therein lies the key, including for international cooperation. We have to help the country to strengthen its institutions, improve regulations, and facilitate investment. Thank you very much. I would also like to ask Mr. Calixte, if you are hearing me, how Haiti is moving forward when it comes to strengthening its regulatory environment. This is to facilitate these blended income, these blended resources between philanthropy, the public sector, and the private sector. Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I gave a general presentation in terms of what it is we have achieved and what it is we want, so that we can help to train those who work in the regulatory sphere. I can talk about areas for collaboration. What I have been able to confirm is that because of violence, gangs, and political instability. We have our engineers who are moving to the US, to Canada, to the European Union. Even if we have resources, we don't have skilled human resources to be able to mobilize to help the sector advance. And this is something of great importance in training, and that is why I was insisting during my presentation that there were many aspects having to do with financing, but training is absolutely key because that is something that can be implemented through cooperation mechanisms.
And with the Latin American Organization of Development, if we could focus on possible trainings, this could be used to develop our plan. This is with Oladi. So this is the type of collaboration we seek. We know that financing projects or everything that's trying to do in a short amount of time is something that we can look to, but we're trying to shortcut all of that, and we know that training and capacity building is something that we can put in place and we can do so quickly, and that's why I stressed it so much, and through my presentation and through what I've said thus far.
Muchas gracias por la...
And thank you very much for that response. We now open the floor to the states. The delegation of Haiti has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to congratulate you for convening this very important session, and one that's on a topic that's vital to the region and one that's especially important to my dear country, Haiti. And that's why I congratulate Mr. Tejeda and Mr. Calix for their brilliant presentation. Mr. Calix presented us with a roadmap. This is the roadmap of the Haitian government for energy. It was a brilliant and clear presentation. Director Calix clearly presented the government's priorities in Haiti. And if I may, I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, that the concern of the Haitian government, especially with regard to support from financial institutions, the concern in the past has often been about a non-alignment of those international institutions around the priorities of the Haitian government. And Mr. Calix's presentation in that regard was very clear. He conveyed the desires of the Haitian government, and that would be that the aid agencies and the financial institutions internationally, especially such as the IDB and others, the desires that they would align themselves around the priorities set forth by the Haitian government and enshrined in the roadmap that Mr. Calix was telling you about. And now I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Tejeda. To what extent is the IDB aligning its activities around the priorities defined by the Haitian government, specifically in its roadmap? Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. To the delegation of Haiti, please go ahead with your answer. Yes, Ambassador, indeed. As a matter of fact, the work the IDB's been doing in the country for many years at this point is part of this roadmap. Much of the information and knowledge that has come out of the roadmap is thanks to the contributions of the IDB in the country. I talked about 2 different paths that are part of this roadmap, technically speaking. It's much broader, of course. but we are also working on skills building. Mr. Calista also discussed this. We are endeavoring to rehabilitate some of the regional systems. This is also part of the roadmap. We are attempting to move forward with these mini grids. They too are part of the roadmap. We want the private sector to be involved. This is part of the roadmap, and to move toward renewables, which is at the very core of the roadmap. The IDB is part to some of the guiding principles in the sector. The government has requested this of the IDB, and the IDB is channeling, just to restate, technical cooperation towards institution strengthening. We conduct studies, provide training. We also provide funding and financing for infrastructure development. In many cases, this comes through IDB grants. The member countries of the IDB have made this decision that at this time, IDB support for the country comes in the form of grants. This has helped to devise this roadmap as we look forward, and it stresses the importance of the development of infrastructure with the involvement of the private sector and international banks. This is the array of mechanisms that are there for developing infrastructure, but we want to make sure that the infrastructure is sustainable over time. Thanks to agencies, institution strengthening, as well as improved education in the country looking forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Tejada, for that response. I believe we have another request for the floor. The Dominican Republic. Please go ahead.
Bueno, muy bien. Seguimos entonces.
Thank you then. We will continue. I don't know if anyone else would like to make a substantive statement on this item. If that is not the case, I would like to thank our two panelists for their very valuable presence, Mr. Teja with the Inter-American Development Bank's experience and Mr. Calista from the major regulating agency in Haiti. We will then take due note of the conclusions and recommendations put forth, and that to work together with the IDB and the Internal Development Secretariat and other partners providing to Haiti, in this case, and specifically targeting the energy sector. They're also developing an OAS roadmap in order to guide our support provided to Haiti from the OAS. And of course, I'd like to thank Mr. Tejada and thank him for his kind presence with us. Thank you.
Muy bien, seguimos entonces con el segundo punto.
Well, we will now continue with the second item under this part of the agenda, which is entitled Toward a Perspective on Cooperation, Efficiency, and Energy Security. We will be providing you with an executive summary of the debates on energy that have taken place in the context of CEDAW in the last half of the year. We'll be looking at the contributions and recommendations put forth by member states. To that end, this chair shared with you the report contained in document CD/INF 719/26, which hopefully was distributed in a timely manner. Before presenting you with the summary, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the vice chair of the council, exercised by Belize, and for their ongoing support throughout this cycle of work. And of course, I'd like to thank the Executive Secretariat for the integral development, for their technical support. Throughout this first half of the year, the discussions on energy integration and interdependence, efficiency, diversification, critical minerals, and financing have all highlighted some shared priorities: the need for predictable regulatory frameworks and legal security, strengthening of value chains, and creating value added in the hemisphere. It would also underscore the importance of traceability, transparency, environmental standards, social standards, the key habilitating role of infrastructure and financing in this regard, centrality, sustainability, social licenses, and a fair transition. Despite the diversity of energy patterns and institutional capacity found in the hemisphere, delegations showed that there was remarkable convergence around a number of different axes. First, regional energy integration was acknowledged as a major component of the security architecture based on models such as CPAC and interconnections in the Southern Cone. Secondly, harmonization and regulatory predictability was identified as major leveraging means to determine attraction of private investment at a larger scale. Thirdly, there was an emphasis on critical minerals, which was looked at in a specific session where we reflected on the turning point between emphasizing value-added creation within the hemisphere, processing, refining, and advanced manufacturing above and beyond the mere export model of raw materials. And also we underscored the urgency of combating illegal mining. Finally, access to affordable financing was highlighted, as well as the issue of bottlenecks in the transition. These mandates, whether they're explicit or implicit, provide us with a sound basis for the Secretariat through SETI to be able to present specific proposals for the upcoming ministerial meeting, strengthening the Strategic Climate and Energy Alliance of the Americas, ECPA, as a permanent and ongoing mechanism to provide assistance in the area of energy, technical assistance, under the mandate of CINDID, as well as the Inter-American Framework for Energy Integration, operating within existing hemispheric institutions, without creating new entities or imposing additional tax burdens, including critical minerals as a major axis of industrial development, such as traceability and environmental and social standards. All of this is very important with a specific window for small island developing states. So here it's important to underscore that delegations explicitly requested a deliberative process prior to any decisions being taken within an institution. It is decisions that would be greater in scope. And this would be done through CD and ministerial level sessions. All of this provides very worthwhile inputs for the preparatory process to the ministerial level meeting, and they reflect CD's vocation to provide discussion and deliberation to work towards specific concrete action. Now we will have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that will be on the screen. And this is going to help us with what you already know. And we have Mr. Ambride from SEDI. And I just want to summarize, we're really very pleased for having, with all the states together, put this topic on the table, the topic of energy, as an issue that's key to development, to security, and of course to achieving prosperity. The document maps out contributions that have been made throughout the first half of this year, but it also clearly identifies contributions and priorities of states. Now you can see there the proposal on contribution of ECPA, coordination, better coordination with multilateral organizations, or specialized in, such as OLADE, IDB, the US program in this area, And at the end of each major area, we tried to recognize those countries that drove forward those ideas in each chapter. For example, Proposal 1, this was from the demarcation of Peru, Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Paraguay. Also, the Inter-American project on energy integration, this was put under CD and integrated by SEDI, Inter-American Framework for Energy Integration to facilitate regulation, reduce fragmentation, and attract private investment. This should be a framework working with existing institutions without creating any new institutions or tax burdens. But other actors such as Costa Rica, Brazil, El Salvador identified the need for making headway in standards for the energy transition of the Americas. We have sub-regional systems that are starting to work in a regional way, such as Central America and the Southern Cone, and then of course North America. But now what we need to do is work towards coordinated integration throughout the hemisphere. And I think that is a very interesting proposal looking to the future, and I think we can work together on these issues. With regard to the hemispheric platform for critical minerals, here I think there was broad interest by states to make some progress in this area at the ministerial level and its importance for economic and industrial development. Member states shared the importance of traceability and transparency, as well as national value added and combating illegal mining, and coordinate efforts with hemispheric efforts as presented by the United States also during this period. And this was all of these ideas were accompanied by Argentina, Brazil, Jamaica, the United States, amongst others. And it's also very interesting to see that there was a consensus that arose around the idea of the region at this stage of development, where we're looking at electrification, the needs created by artificial intelligence, and the needs for critical minerals for this. We can go beyond just being suppliers of raw materials, but we can also provide industrialization processes that can contribute to value added, create jobs and development. The fourth area was financing. This recognized the importance of looking at innovative financing, especially for small island developing states. A number of proposals were put forth, concessional funds, subsidies, etc. Also, here is a coordinated effort that's important with the multilateral financial bodies, and also the importance of any energy platform for CD. This idea was supported by a number of countries, including Suriname. Then we have institutional governance, continuity of ECPA, transformation of ESPA in ECPA. Here, most states requested a deliberative, open, transparent process to discuss transition to ECPA, leading to any formal decision. We have national positions looking at prior considerations, and this have explicit support from countries such as Brazil, Costa Rica, Mexico, amongst others. Now, briefly, I'll conclude saying that there were a number of conclusions that emerged from this process. There's much more than what I'm going to say here, but for all member states, energy is very important for coordinating efforts towards sustainable development, the benefits of integration and cooperation amongst OAS countries. In energy, there are many benefits. Energy technology, digital technology, and technology is key to security in the sector and supply reliability. The Department of Sustainable Development and CD are working together to make progress towards planning the ministerial level meeting, working with the Minister of Environment of Panama and partners here at the OAS. So to conclude, I just have to thank the Secretariat and all member states When we started with these discussions, I never thought we would be able to come to a document that would provide structure and that would guide us. So I'm proud of this accomplishment. This is our first presentation of the document, but we are open to further contributions, suggestions, or recommendations with regard to this document. It's a living document. And so I would invite you to participate in the process that is starting as of now in the Inter-American Sustainable Development Commission, and where we're going to be working on this in order to craft this white paper starting from today. So I now open the floor for statements by member states.
Damos el uso de la palabra a la delegación de Panamá.
Give the floor to the delegation of Panama. Good morning. Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Panama would like to thank you for this summary, and we acknowledge the very worthwhile exchange of experiences and good practice that's taken place during this first half of the year around strategic issues relating to development of our countries, and that is energy. From Panama's point of view, we have 3 priorities we'd like to highlight in working towards preparing the energy component for the upcoming sustainable meeting of ministers. First, diversification and modernization of energy patterns. The contributions in this space in this first half of the year have shown the importance of broadening sources to renewable energy and more efficient and flexible management of energy sources. Second, we think it's a priority to strengthen energy integration at the regional level, expand interconnection between different supply sources that would facilitate exchanges of information when there are surpluses or temporary supply cuts. And third, we'd like to highlight that it's key to drive mechanisms that facilitate access to financing and capacity building. The energy transition is an extraordinary opportunity to further sustainable development, but also requires significant investment in the area of cooperation. In this context, the organization can continue consolidating itself as a hemispheric platform for dialogue and intercoordination between governments, financial institutions, the academic world, and the private sector. Also, it can contribute to identify opportunities for regional cooperation and emerging opportunities. Sir, the Americas have the resources, the talent to be able to work towards more secure and sustainable energy. And Panama reiterates its commitment to continue working with member states, the Secretariat, and strategic partners to strengthen energy cooperation regionally and to prepare the upcoming ministerial level meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Panama. And we're here to serve in order to prepare the ministerial level process that will guide the work of this half of the year. I now give the floor to the Ambassador of the Dominican Republic. Thank you. We'd like to thank the chair for the presentations, and with your indulgence, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jimenez, who is head of the electrical service and mining, who will be addressing the issue of energy online. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez, you're welcome, and you have the floor. Thank you, sir. Distinguished delegates, the Dominican Republic appreciates the opportunity to speak in this space in the context of follow-up of the Inter-American Commission on Integral Development for this year. We value the progress achieved this year, especially consolidation of an agenda geared to results and identifying areas of convergence amongst member states and in the efforts undertaken. This discussion is particularly relevant. It is in a context where our countries are grappling with infrastructural challenges such as equitable access to basic services, sustainability of productive services, and resiliency vis-a-vis external shocks such as the one we're experiencing at this time. In this area, energy is key for development. For the Dominican Republic, action in the energy sector has been oriented by a comprehensive view based on three major priorities strategically. First, efficiency as a cross-cutting effort to improve competitiveness and optimize use of resources. Currently, we're promoting plans to reduce energy dependency of the country and improve demand management in the public sector. In the last 20 years, we've seen sustained reduction in demand requirements of the country. We've reduced by 40%. We are also promoting enactment of laws on energy efficiency, which will be key to strengthen energy security and to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. Diversification of the energy sources will help us work towards more renewable sources as a way to reduce our vulnerability vis-a-vis the volatility of fossil fuel markets and prices and ensure energy security of the country. At the end of 2025, we managed that 25% of demand nationally would be based on clean sources. Some 500 megawatts produced in 2020 to more than 2,000 megawatts from renewable sources in 2025, or unconventional sources. Another important pillar is access to universal energy sources. Rural diversification is important here, for example. We recognize that we have to close the gaps that directly impact social inclusion and productivity in vulnerable areas. Here we're trying to close the gap by 1.5% of homes that still do not have access to electrical services. With regard to the questions put forth in the concept note, we'd like to highlight three main messages. We understand that the main challenge is inclusion capacity. That's why we think it's vital to strengthen follow-up mechanisms and evaluation to make sure that initiatives undertaken in the context of CD lead to measurable and verifiable results. Turning to technical and cooperation and financing, we identified the need to work towards more flexible systems that make it possible to combine public resources with international aid and participation from the private sector. The focus would be on closing critical gaps in the energy and access to energy. With regard to regional coordination, we identified the need to build platforms for cooperation in order to share good practices, knowledge transfer, and to scale solutions that have already yielded results in our countries. As we explained, we are driving concrete action in this area that would include programs to expand electrical coverage, strengthening institutions, and promoting transition projects for energy that promote sustainability, resiliency, and inclusion. We would reiterate that the energy transition in our countries cannot be addressed just as a technical issue. It's also a strategic in order to drive productive development, reduce inequalities, and strengthen social cohesion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jesualdo Jimenez, Director of the Electrical Sector of the Energy Ministry of the Dominican Republic. I now give the floor to the delegation of Uruguay. Thank you, sir. In concluding this period of work of our commission, I'd like to highlight some of the major priorities that have guided our discussions and that reflect a shared vision of sustainable development in the Americas. Throughout these months, CD has promoted substantive discussion on strategic issues for the future of our region. These would include energy security, the transition to more sustainable economies, resilience to climate change, paying attention to the increase in demand for electrical supply, and the need to build institutional capacity. From Uruguay's point of view, these matters are all very much interrelated. Our experience shows that structural transformation requires a long-term vision, stability of public policy, and cooperation. Thanks to that, Uruguay has managed to consolidate one of the most renewable electrical grids in the world reducing its energy dependency, and moving towards a model based on diversification, innovation, and sustainability. However, the energy transition also brings with it new challenges. Critical minerals, which are vital to clean technology, compels us to think about how can Latin America and the Caribbean participate in a more active way in the global value chains. This is not just about extracting natural resources, but also building technological capacity. It's about promoting industrialization, including value added, and strengthening the economies of our country. In that context, regional integration becomes vitally important. No country alone can face the energy challenges, nor those of the productive ones or the climate ones of this century. Our electrical systems, harmonization of regulatory frameworks, technology, and exchange of information are all key tools to build a more competitive and resilient region. Likewise, adapting to climate change should be central to our development policies. Extreme weather events, droughts, and other events related to climate change mean that we need energy systems that can adapt and recover. Resiliency is no longer an option. It's a sine qua non condition to guarantee energy security and the well-being of our societies. These topics were addressed by CD through a results-based approach and identifying concrete opportunities for hemispheric cooperation. These would include institutional capacity building, promoting sustainability and transparency standards, the exchange of good practices, and creating strategic information to facilitate productive and energy integration. Also, in this period, we saw particular significance in celebrating the anniversary of CD. 30 years after it was founded, CD continues to be the main hemispheric space for political dialogue and for cooperation in the area of integral development. It adapts to new challenges, and it's reaffirming its relevance within the inter-American system. We'd like to highlight the work done during this period, which included active participation of all delegations, providing their experiences and national experts, as well as the contribution of experts provided by CD. Along with other bodies of CD, we agreed on draft declarations and resolution geared to be considered by the General Assembly to serve as a sound basis for continuing this agenda. Sir, the challenges we face are complex, but they also represent extraordinary opportunities. The energy transition, technology transformation, and the need to build more sustainable economies mean that we need to have a spirit of cooperation and a shared vision. Uruguay reaffirms its commitment to the collective effort and to strengthening CD as an area that can transform dialogue into concrete action, promoting more inclusive, sustainable, and resilient development for all peoples of the Americas. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. I would now like to give the floor to the representative of Mexico. Thank you very much, Chair. Mexico reaffirms that sovereignty and energy security are a strategic objective of economic development. We are pushing for clean energies so that it's more and sustainable, efficient, resilient, and affordable for all peoples. The delegation of Mexico values the discussions in CD with regard to energy over the past 6 months. We believe that there have been great inputs on the energy component for the 5th ministerial meeting for sustainable development in 2027. In this context, we value the document shared by the chair of CD as a summary of some of the recommendations and observations made by the member states. These are recommendations and not mandates that have been negotiated. They must be evaluated from the standpoint of agreements contained in the Inter-American Plan of Action on Climate Change 2023-2030 and the Nassau Declaration, which already put forward a series of substantive actions in terms of energy transition and for the adoption of policies on energy efficiency. In this regard, we encourage moving forward that go in a way that goes beyond energy security and includes cooperation and safe, efficient, and equitable energy development in the Americas, where vulnerable groups and local communities are the ones who benefit the most. Bearing in mind that the partnership, the Energy and Climate Partnership, came out of the 9th summit, we proposed that a new alliance could be considered in the same framework. The experience of ECPA will be very useful, but we do not believe that it needs to be reactivated. We would like to take the lessons learned and incorporate them into the work that individual member states are doing. We would like SETI to be incorporated into the summary document. We must make the most of existing infrastructure in the OAS and also specialized international organizations like OLAVE, the International Energy Agency, and Atomic Energy, and not duplicate efforts given the critical financial situation of the organization. Collective actions to improve electrical interconnection and electricity systems, promote intra-regional grids, and sharing of best practices and lessons learned. These are valuable inputs and can be recommended during the 5th Ministerial on Sustainable Development in particular. Thank you. Thank you to the delegation of Mexico for those observations and suggestions. We are taking note thereof. I would now like to give the floor to the delegation of Peru. Thank you very much, Chair. Peru values the strategic summary prepared by the Chair of CD with a valuable support of the Department of Sustainable Development, which reflects the convergences in dialogues on energy that we held over the past 6 months. We think it's particularly valuable that this process has made it possible to move on from the sharing of experiences to identifying specific actions that can provide input to the ministerial process. We believe it's important to strengthen hemispheric cooperation based on existing mechanisms, avoiding institutional duplication, and making the most of what is already available in the Inter-American system and in specialized agencies in the region. We highlight the importance of value chains and critical minerals as part of sustainable development, innovation, and greater technology transfer. For countries like Peru, it is essential that this includes sustainability, traceability, and value added. We also reiterate the importance of the process toward the next ministerial be guided by open and inclusive dialogue and take into consideration the different national realities and priorities. Thank you. Thank you. I now give the floor to the delegation of Paraguay. Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of Paraguay would like to thank you for including this item, and we commend the Chair on all of the work done to guide our work over the past 6 months in the area of energy transition. Paraguay expresses its solidarity with the people of Haiti given the structural complexities they are facing. We believe that energy crises are integral challenges. In terms of financing and closing gaps in vulnerable states, we believe it's important to look at blended mechanisms that seek a balance between mobilization of private capital and the sustainability of public debt. We believe that PPPs, blended financing, and tax incentives at a national level could be viable options in this regard. We also understand that the effectiveness of these strategies are tied to resilience and institutional capacity. In Paraguay, we believe that resilience must be considered during energy planning. We take advantage of this opportunity to share with the Council the culmination of a guide for implementation of a methodology for resilient electricity planning. This includes technical assistance from the European Union and ECLAC. It considers the usefulness of cooperation and strategic partnerships to strengthen the sector in the region. To make the most of these, we are working with the IDB, CAF, and the World Bank. They help countries identify their weaknesses and establish priorities. It can also be very useful to have sector-related incentives. In this case, Paraguay would like to mention the effectiveness of PROESA, which was co-financed by the Green Climate Fund and the FAO. In Paraguay, we have been working with indigenous communities to provide efficient cooking stoves. This is in an effort to reduce their vulnerability. Mr. Chairman, as we look toward the 5th meeting of Ministers of Sustainable Development, Paraguay believes we have to provide incentives to public policies and energy transition as a guide. We believe we have to establish long-term targets toward clean energies and make sure that renewable energy is integral and take into account vulnerable communities in a potential joint declaration that establishes some of the joint challenges. This could be an initial input for determining future lines of action. Lastly, we believe that the OAS could support regional efforts along 3 different pillars. First, promoting the design of standardized regulatory frameworks on energy systems and work on innovative financing mechanisms that reduce uncertainty surrounding investment and supporting technology transfer and know-how alongside other international organizations. This could provide mutual benefits. Paraguay expresses its full commitment to support this regional proposal. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paraguay, for your suggestions. The delegation of Chile has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chile deeply values this current exercise. It has been 6 months of intense discussions about critical minerals, energy diversification, among others. And as other delegations that preceded me have already stated, particularly what was stated by Mexico is CIDI could provide specific recommendations with technical support. We would like to emphasize 3 priority pillars. One is the energy transition as a strategic pillar. And what we've seen over these 6 months is the fragmentation of energy systems in the region limits our ability to work together in the face of external pressures. Secondly, this is not technical, rather it's institutional. We have to have compatible regulatory frameworks and economic incentives for energy transition projects. And then diversification as part of energy security. In Chile's experience, as we have shared over the course of the past few months, for example, having reached our target early on battery storage, and this led to significant savings up to approximately 50% of energy. This was not something that was improvised. This was a long-term state energy policy from 2025 to 2050. You have to have minimum performance and specific efficiency tools. Then we have the role of the OAS as facilitating and technical cooperation and shared know-how. We've seen that there are significant gaps in the countries of the region. In this context, the OAS can play a very specific role promoting platforms for sharing experiences in terms of regulations, and coordinating financing amongst different multilateral organizations. Chile believes we have the opportunity, after 6 months of deliberations, to come up with recommendations that are both feasible and measurable, and that will help our region advance. Thank you very much, Chair. We are receiving suggestions that can be added. I would like to remind the delegations of the importance of sharing your interventions in writing so that we can accurately include them. On June 30th, the term of this chair will end. Perhaps if you could get those to us by the 25th. And now the mission of Grenada has the floor.
My delegation, thank you, and your team for the comprehensive semester report, and also for the thoughtful discussions that have taken place throughout the series of on development, energy development and security. For Grenada's perspectives, 3 priorities should help anchor the energy component of the forthcoming ministerial meeting, and we put them out as first. Energy security and resilience must remain at the center of our discussions, true. And for many small and vulnerable states, energy is not merely a commodity. It is fundamental to the economic growth, to competitiveness, to social development, disaster resilience, and national security. The experience of the Caribbean, including Grenada's own experience with major natural disasters, reminds us that energy systems must be designed not only for efficiency, but also for resilience and continuity in times of crisis. Second, a greater attention must be given to affordable financing. For many developing countries, particularly the smaller ones among us, the challenge is not simply identifying energy solutions. It is securing the capital required to implement them. And for us, some of the highest electricity costs in the hemisphere exist. And these are not simply an energy issue. They are a competitiveness issue, development issue. Increasingly too, they are a resilience issue. We therefore believe that expanding access to concessional financing, blended finance instruments, project preparation facilities, and technical assistance should be central pillar in the ministerial's agenda. Stronger collaboration with institutions such as IDB, CAF, and World Bank, among others, are and will be essential. Third, the member states should retain and be allowed to retain sufficient flexibility to pursue energy pathways that reflect their respective national circumstances and development priorities. For Grenada, this includes continued investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency, while also exploring opportunities for energy diversification, including the responsible development of potential domestic energy sources, whatever these may be. Energy security and energy transition should not be viewed as competing objectives, therefore, we think. Rather, they should advance together in a manner that promotes affordability, promotes resilience, and sustainability and economic opportunities. Mr. Chair, as we look forward to the ministerial process, Grenada is also, we also see value in strengthening practical cooperation among our member states within the framework of CD and the dialogue that you have commenced in the last 6 months, in the last semester. The OAS indeed can play an important role as a convener of governments, of development partners, of technical experts, and investors, as a facilitator of access to financing and expertise, and as a platform as well for sharing best practices and successful experiences across the hemisphere. We look forward to working with Panama and all member states as these priorities are advanced and towards the ministerial. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. I now give the floor to Brazil. Thank you, sir. The delegation of Brazil would like to extend greetings to Ambassador Valois, the new Executive Secretary for Integral Development, and we appreciate the panelist presentation this morning. that show us a clear vision very much shared by Brazil. We hope to continue working with SEDI closely in a cooperative manner to guarantee an agenda that's bold, rational, and realistic, focused on seeking effective impact and based on the evaluation of real results and a frank discussion with constant improvement of the portfolio of the Secretariat. Sir, with regard to this item on our agenda, we think it's a priority to continue cooperating with events to help Haiti. That would include financial, technical, and other institutional assistance already available in the region. Brazil supports the idea of the convergence without duplication of efforts and is always seeking to improve cooperation for the country in partnership with other competent authorities and partners. With regard to this item on the Brazil takes note of the presentation of the report of the chair, and we plan to continue working constructively through discussion and working on this document. As you said, it's a living document. We appreciate the leadership of the chair at the helm of CD throughout this half of the year, seeking consensus, promoting dialogue without losing sight of Pan-American values, which are of the highest. We'd like to thank Uruguay for organizing all of these meetings, to which we are very grateful. Brazil would like to make progress in a number of different areas to promote institutional resiliency for financing, implementation of energy systems that are more resilient, diversified, and nationally integrated, and regionally. The political commitment amongst states, which should be implemented through existing institutions, should be favored to work towards new cooperation mechanisms to avoid duplication of efforts in the context of what's already done and with regard to the restricted resources of this organization. Brazil calls for integration and energy interdependence to reduce vulnerability and to decrease weaknesses in funding. Electrical diversification depends on advances in areas south-south, which is integrating Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil, or others such as SINEA and CPAC are also very worthwhile efforts. This can help in the near future to create an integrated grid for the whole southern cone, all the way up to Central America. Efforts such as these integration efforts can help it be supported by integration and cooperation efforts amongst all member states. There are also relevant opportunities that can be explored in the region for sustainable development, such as replacing fossil fuels with decarbonized or green energies, as was discussed earlier. Biogas, hydrogen, synthetic fuels all have a key role to play in our energy systems of the future. It will be necessary to have them to diversify our electrical system. We'd also like to note Brazil's concern with regard to a narrative that seems to try to relativize energy as an issue. Reducing dependency on energy can create more resilient and sustainable value chains based on clean technologies. This is not just an obligation of everyone, but it's also a significant economic opportunity. Brazil believes that in this context, energy security is not just about energy transition. To the contrary, we see the transition as a great opportunity to achieve security. We are now investing the most in the world in a regulatory framework, development, research, pushing in these areas, trying to attract more investment. For us, the energy transition is based on sustainable investment, and everything related to the energy sector in Brazil needs to be evaluated in terms of transforming the economy in order to create one that's more sustainable in its foundation. With regard to the upcoming ministerial level meeting on sustainable energy, we need to focus on the three areas of sustainable: social, economic, and environmental, as well as better processes in these areas, taking into account the current economic financial reality and the future financial reality of the organization. So we would highlight Brazil's concern that the level of ambition for the mandates for the ministerial level needs to be compatible with available resources in the organization. Brazil notes its constructive commitment to work together in all stages of preparing the ministerial level meeting with concrete results in mind to support sustainable development for the benefit of the peoples of the Americas, especially the most vulnerable. Once again, sir, we thank you for your chairmanship throughout this year, and we wish you a well-deserved rest. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you to the delegation of Brazil. And after the GA, we will all have time to rest. The delegation of Guatemala is recognized. Thank you very much, Chair. As this is the last regular meeting under your chairmanship, we would like to express our acknowledgement to you for all of the good work you have done leading this council. And this begins with the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of CD, and we take this opportunity to highlight its relevancy within the OAS at a technical level, as well as in terms of partnership for development. The efforts you, Ambassador Lanza, as well as that of the delegation of Uruguay, alongside the Secretariat, to ensure that CD and its committees working well as we look forward to the next General Assembly. We also value the focus and approach this week to look at the energy transition as key to sustainable development. We thank you for the report and the summary. We think this is a valuable contribution. It offers a clear vision of the opportunities, challenges, and synergies that exist in this area. Mr. Chairman, the deliberations over the past 6 months have highlighted the need to have a long-term strategic path forward as far as energy development in the Americas is concerned. We face challenges related to climate change, to energy infrastructure and processes and energy transition. We believe it is a priority to strengthen the resilience of systems, modernize strategic infrastructure, and to improve institutional capabilities. We have reaffirmed the value of energy integration at a regional level as a tool to strengthen energy security, optimize resources, and improve the response capacity in the case of interruptions to supply. Diversification of energy grids continue to be important for reducing vulnerabilities, provide opportunities for development and sustainability in the long term. Distinguished representatives, we recognize the importance of promoting a coordinated vision in terms of climate action, sustainable development, and energy security. As we prepare for the upcoming ministerial, we believe we have the opportunity to advance in the implementation of the commitments we've taken on in the framework of the Inter-American Plan on Climate Action, focused on resilience and energy diversification and regional cooperation. To advance, it will be essential to strengthen hemispheric cooperation, mobilize resources, improve financing mechanisms, and promote the sharing of experiences and knowledge. This forum continues to be a significant platform for dialogue and regional cooperation, facilitates convergence amongst member states, international financial organizations, and specialized agencies. Mr. Chairman, after this process of reflection and identification of areas of convergence and priorities, the challenges before us have to do with achieving consensus and important actions towards energy security, sustainable development. Guatemala trusts that the ideas, experiences shared here will continue to enrich regional efforts in terms of energy and sustainable development. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your remarks. The Mission of El Salvador now has the floor. And thank you very much, Chair. We would like to thank the approach that you've taken over the past 6 months. Particularly, we acknowledge the efforts of you as chair in presenting us a summary that provides a recap of all of our dialogues as an initial input, which will help us to determine priorities for the upcoming ministerial process. El Salvador is convinced that it is essential at both a national and multilateral level to ensure a cleaner, more secure and efficient energy future, taking advantage of technology and to the benefit of our populations. We recognize to guarantee sustainable solutions, it is necessary to prioritize financing mechanisms that blend concessional resources, technical assistance, and systems for mitigating risk, particularly for rural electrification and distributed energy, microgrids, and the rehabilitation of critical infrastructure projects. We are convinced that energy resilience does not rely simply on new infrastructure, but rather on institutions that are capable of operating, maintaining, and overseeing energy systems. As we look forward to the upcoming ministerial, as we've expressed in different discussions, the energy component is to include that we have to strengthen our capabilities as states in energy regulation, governance of the sector, and the capacity to have financially viable projects as our commitment to drive actions to guarantee energy security through the diversification of sources, energy efficiency, electrical integration, and a resilience of critical infrastructure, particularly strengthening interregional electrical systems to strengthen energy security. As has been indicated in the summary shared by the chair, it's important to have more accessible financing mechanisms to promote energy transition, have an agenda that provides access to climate finance and more favorable conditions, particularly for projects that combine climate and social benefits and financial sustainability. This will help to facilitate the energy transition without creating an excessive burden to public finances. And the OAS also faces the challenge of the effective use of mechanisms, its own mechanisms, to create synergies with the different bodies and member states to maximize results from an integral standpoint. The OAS should play a coordinating role, regionally speaking, to promote multi-actor partnerships with international organizations or other key actors to strengthen inter-American actions in this area. Lastly, we reiterate El Salvador's willingness to continue to support from our own reality, experience, and capabilities to guarantee energy sustainability and security to the benefit of our people. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to El Salvador, and I wanted to reiterate my thanks to all of delegations. We welcome your inputs and your suggestions. And again, we please ask that you provide those to us in writing before the 25th of June. I see no further requests for the floor. And so we propose that we take note of the report as well as the comments by delegations. Okay, we will now move on to the draft resolution on the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development. Nope, I got ahead of myself. There was a previous item. It has to do with the report on the Committee on Partnership for Development Policies, August 2025, June 2026. I am now pleased to offer the floor to the chair of the committee, Ambassador Ana Idalia Castellanos, who is the alternate representative of the Dominican Republic, who will present the report. Thank you very much, Chair. It is my honor to present to this council the annual report of the Committee on Partnership for Development Policies that corresponds to the period of August 2025 to June 2026 and is in CD/CPD/Doc 249/26. And I formally submitted to CD. In this period, the committee had 10 regular meetings and a number of informal encounters where we addressed the substantive agenda of the integral development pillar of the organization. First, the committee followed up on the triennial ministerial cycle, approved the work plans of the Inter-American Committee on Tourism and the Inter-American Committee on Culture. We looked at progress made in areas on ports, social development, science and technology, education, and human development. Secondly, under the leadership of Mexico, we reestablished the informal consultations in 4CD. This was part of AG/33038 with the participation of 12 member states. The mechanism drafted a final report with recommendations on the implementation of the work plan, proposals to changes to the rules of procedure, and information on commemoration of the 30th anniversary of CD. In terms of mandates, one of the core pillars of our work was that the committee move forward substantively. Luis Alberto de Castillos from the Office of the Executive Director provided presentations on new institutional frameworks for the drafting, classification, and costing of mandates in the context of resolutions AG 33037 and AG 3037-1 of October of 2025, which were supplemented with the new policy on mandate management from February of 2026. On that basis, we began to go through all of the mandates for CD of 360 existing mandates from between 2015 and 2025. The analysis validated by the technical areas stated that 32 fell under the new definition of mandate. More than 15 had been complied with and 3 were obsolete. The resolution was adopted by the committee and it's a March 2026 meeting. In terms of the rules of procedure, we drafted amendments to the rules of procedure and we achieved consensus on the draft resolution advancing hemispheric initiatives on integral development. The committee also was supported by the Secretariat in preparing a meeting for the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of CD, and we agreed on text for the declaration. And these will be considered under the next agenda points so that they will ultimately be remitted to the General Assembly. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to express my most sincere thanks to each and every one of the representatives of the member states for the joint work and the constructive spirit that permeated all of our discussions. We sought consensus and this made possible our achievements. I would like to express my deep thanks to the Vice Chair, Rosa Megrat from Guatemala, and our other representative from Ecuador. Their support was key as we debated the draft resolutions, and the Minister Lula, who was part of the mechanism on informal consultations, and to everyone who took part for all of your technical and policy support. I would also like to thank and the staff of the Secretariat for their professionalism and constant support. And to Kim Osborne and Barbara Coswell and Georgina Majorca, the secretary from the City Secretariat, as well as the representative of the Executive Director's Office, and from Legal Affairs and the entire Conferences Department. Your support and guidance were essential for the good operation of the committee. And to you, Chair of the CD, Ambassador Lanza, thank you very much. I would like to express my acknowledgement and thanks to each and every one of you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that presentation. And I'd also like to congratulate you on the work accomplished. Indeed, we worked together a great deal, and we met in order to coordinate action for CD. And of course, I'd also like to acknowledge that the chair, the vice chair, and all members of the committee as a whole worked together to support the work of the council in consideration of the draft resolution, follow-up of mandates. We worked on following mandates for the area of cooperation for integral development. So I must especially recognize the work of the committee during this period, and of course, under your stewardship, Madam. In that regard, I'd also like to now open the floor for any delegations who may wish to speak to this item of our agenda. I give the floor to Peru. Thank you very much, sir. Peru would like to thank Ambassador Castellanos for presenting this report, and we'd like to especially thank her for her leadership at the head of the Committee on Partnership for Development Policies. We would like to express gratitude for her convening of meetings and her inclusive approach to dialogue. Throughout the meetings of the committee, she promoted active participation of experts and various technical workshops of the organization that enriched our discussions and facilitated a consensus emerging on topics of great complexity. We value her constructive and positive way of conducting our discussions, always providing an atmosphere of respect and openness amongst delegations. We also would like to acknowledge the vice chairs of the region, Rosa Marisol Guerrero of Guatemala, Andrea Moscosa from Ecuador, for their ongoing support and valuable contributions to the work of the committee. Thank you. Thank you, says the chair. Now give the floor to the delegation of Guatemala. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate the report that was presented, and we'd like to especially acknowledge Ambassador Castellanos for her leadership at the helm of the Committee on Partnership for Development Policies. And we'd also like to acknowledge the distinguished colleague Moscoso from Ecuador. We worked together to be vice chairs of this committee. For me, it was an honor to be part of the board and to support its work during these months. And I very much appreciated the opportunity to learn from great diplomatic women. We always would comment in our coordination meetings that everything was aligned in a positive way so that all initiatives would make headway, despite challenges such as time, resources. But what prevailed was the determination of delegations to support the Secretariat, the openness of the chair of CD, and the valuable contributions to the strengthening of CD, all of which helped to clarify and work towards very constructive and positive work. I was also to promote efforts to promote the work of CD and other initiatives such as commemoration of the 30th anniversary. We also had an extraordinary session in this regard, and we are proud of those achievements. And we conclude this period by thanking all the delegates of this prestigious council and the Secretariat for their openness to dialogue, spirit of cooperation. And we'd like to especially thank Medina Mayorga for her ongoing support to the work of this committee. And we'd like to thank all the teams and areas of city that contributed to the success of our efforts. Thank you. Thank you, says the chair. As there are no further requests for the floor, the council takes note of the report at this time. We now move on to item 5 of our agenda, which is consideration of the draft declaration commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development. This is particularly significant to celebrate these 3 decades of the existence of the Council as an integral part of the Inter-American system to promote dialogue and cooperation, to bring about integral development for member states. It's also propitious to think about hemispheric cooperation, standing in solidarity with each other, to work towards the development goal that gave rise to the existence of CD. I'd like to recognize the work of the Committee on Policies in this regard to make concrete this draft declaration. So we put it to the consideration of delegations as set forth in document CD/CPD/Doc 243-26 Rev 2. If there are no comments, we will consider agreed by the Council, and we will put it to the General Assembly for its consideration. It is so approved. We shall now move on to consideration of the draft resolution entitled Advancing Hemispheric Initiatives on Integral Development. This is contained in document CD/CPD/Doc 243-26 Rev 4. It reflects all the mandates as a whole and initiatives that will orient and guide the work of the Council and its subordinate subsidiary bodies in the area of integral development, giving continuity to the priorities set by member states and the General Assembly. Once again, we'd like to thank the Committee on Policies for agreeing on this draft and putting it to our consideration. I now put it to the delegations to consider this draft resolution. If there are no observations, it is considered agreed upon by this Council and will also be sent along to the General Assembly for its approval. It is so approved. We now move on to item 7 of our agenda, report of the Management Board of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development for the period 2025 to 2026. This is the Management Board of the AIDC, which plays a vital role in supporting cooperation based on solidarity in the organization to work towards development in benefit of the projects and development for integral development of member states. It's my pleasure now to give the floor to the chair of the Management Board, the permanent representative of the Bahamas, to give us a report on this. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Good morning, Chair, distinguished representatives, colleagues. It is my distinct honor in my capacity as the current chair of the Management Board of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development to present the report of the Management Board covering the period August 2025 to June 2026. Notably, my tenure commenced in March of this year, having succeeded the Ambassador Luz Elena Baños, the distinguished permanent representative of Mexico. Thus, I note her valuable work and those initiatives that I would have inherited. This reporting period has been characterized by a sustained effort to ensure that the IACD remains responsive, relevant, and fit for purpose in addressing the evolving development priorities of our member states. Please allow me to highlight 5 principal areas of progress. First, the implementation of the Cooperation Action Plan for 2024-2027, which has advanced steadily. The 3 working groups established by member states continued their work in support of the action plan. Their efforts focused on expanding partnerships and financing opportunities, improving the way member states communicate and capture development needs, and examining how the IACD itself can be strengthened to serve the hemisphere much better. These discussions have reinforced an important principle, that development cooperation must remain member state-driven, practical, and results-oriented. Second, the board strengthened oversight of the Development Cooperation Fund. The board approved the programmatic framework for the 2024-27 program cycle, formally launching implementation of 14 national climate-related initiatives across many participating member states. These initiatives, developed through close consultation with national authorities and national liaison offices, are now progressing from design to execution and are expected to generate tangible results in support of our shared climate action commitments. At the same time, the board encouraged greater voluntary contributions to the fund and initiated discussions on ensuring sustainable financing arrangements, including with respect to external audit costs. Third, significant attention was given to scholarships and human capital development. The board approved the necessary budget allocations for the 2026 scholarship and training program while strengthening its oversight role. Member states emphasized the importance of transparency, accountability, and quality assurance in scholarship administration. As a result, additional measures were introduced to ensure that accredited institutions are properly vetted and that any use of unspent funds remains subject to board oversight. These measures seek to preserve confidence in one of the organization's most visible and impactful programs. Fourth, the Language Cooperation Program continued to expand. The program has emerged as a practical example of solidarity and cooperation in action. During this period, teachers and students throughout the hemisphere benefited from training opportunities in English, Spanish, and French. The initiative has supported CARICOM countries, Central America, the Dominican Republic, OAS staff, and permanent missions, helping to reduce language barriers and strengthen intercultural engagement. The launch of CARIFRAN initiative further demonstrates the value of partnerships with observer states and international organizations in expanding opportunities for our citizens. And finally, the board initiated an important conversation on the future of the IACD itself. Recognizing the changing landscape of international cooperation, member states began considering proposals aimed at strengthening the agency's institutional effectiveness, improving its ability to mobilize partnerships and resources, modernizing cooperation tools such as CooperNet, and ensuring that the IACD is equipped to respond to emerging challenges and opportunities. These discussions remain ongoing, and member states have emphasized the importance of preserving ownership of the process while building consensus around any future adjustments. Madam Chair, Chair, my apologies. The achievements reflected in this report are the product of a collective effort. As such, the Management Board expresses its sincere appreciation to member states for their continued engagement and guidance, and also to Ms. Kim Osborne, Chief of the Technical Section, for exemplary leadership and unwavering support, and to the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development for its invaluable assistance, and also to our strategic partners and permanent observers for their contributions and additional efforts, and to the chairs and members of the working groups and the Management Board for their dedication and service. Together, these efforts have strengthened the IACD's ability to advance meaningful results-oriented cooperation throughout the Americas. As we look toward the remainder of the 2024-27 cycle and the fifth specialized meeting of high-level cooperation authorities in 2027, our collective task remains clear: to strengthen cooperation mechanisms, mobilize resources, foster innovation, and build partnerships that translate into meaningful development outcomes for the peoples of the Americas. The Management Board remains committed to ensuring that the IACD continues to serve as a dynamic and effective instrument of integral development within our organization. Chair, I therefore commend the full report as contained in document AICD/JD Doc 251/26. And I also thank you and this esteemed council for its kind attention.
Gracias, embajador.
Thank you, Ambassador Namor, for presenting that report and for your leadership of the Management Board of the AICD during this period. And I'd now like to open the floor for comments from members.
Tiene el uso de la palabra.
I give the floor to the delegation of Mexico. Thank you very much, sir. The delegation of Mexico takes note of the report presented by Mr. Chet Namor, permanent representative of the Bahamas and president of the management board. The report covers the period 2025 under the Mexican chair of this subsidiary body of CD, and where we oriented the action of the agency to take action on the recommendations issued by the fourth meeting of cooperation authorities for 2024 and the plan of action from 2024 to 2027. This was upholding Mexico's commitment to inter-American cooperation to drive social, economic, and sustainable development in the region. From the management board and as a chair of the working group, TESS, and a member of Working Group 2, we sought to promote the work of the agency to be more strategic and better meet the needs of the countries. Along those lines, we'd like to highlight that this year we actively participated in conversations geared to its renewal and strengthening institutionally, and working with other four members of the board, Costa Rica, the United States, Guatemala, and Peru. We presented a course of action to hold broad consultations on this topic, including discussions of possible amendments to the agency statutes. In this regard, we would appreciate that the electronic link to the proposal be sent in note CR OAS 727-726, already distributed by the management board on the 4th of May. We would like to see it included in the report that we are currently considered. Moreover, we would appreciate that the report sent to City by Mexico in its capacity as chair of Working Group 3 on the conclusions and a broad consultation process with regard to expanding and institutional strengthening the agency be included, along with the proposed program for the period of the working group meetings last May. We would appreciate if it would be distributed to member states, as was requested through note OAS 1621 last June 21st. We'd also appreciate this report that we sent at the time be included in the current report that we have under consideration at this moment. Thank you. Thank you. I give the floor to Grenada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Grenada thanks Ambassador Nemo and the members of the Management Board for their leadership and dedication during the reporting period. The report demonstrates the continuing importance of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development as a practical instrument for advancing the integral development objective of our organizations. For us, the development cooperation remains one of the most tangible ways in which the inter-American system can support the national priorities through technical assistance, capacity building, knowledge exchange, and partnerships. Grenada therefore welcomes the board's efforts to strengthen effectiveness, transparency, and the impact of cooperation initiatives. We also encourage continued attention to ensuring that available resources are directed towards projects that deliver measurable and sustainable benefits to member states. As the development challenges become increasingly complex, we believe that the agency's role as a facilitator of cooperation and partnership will become even more important. We thank Ambassador Nemo, as I said. We thank Ambassador Banos, who led part of the period, the reporting period. And we thank the members again for its service and reaffirm Grenada's support for the continued strengthening of the agency and its work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to Bahamas.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much to the delegations of Mexico and the delegation of Grenada. Just wanted to clarify something, and I see some things sneaking in here. The delegation of Mexico raised certain matters, and I can assure you that the chair is not suborning any information. All of the information that has been requested and has been provided during my tenure will also accompany the report that was submitted. So if there are any further clarifications, I think Mexico should liaise with the technical secretariat because I get the impression that there may be some misunderstanding that items have been suborned under my chairmanship no such activity should take place.
Muchas gracias. Para una aclaración.
Thank you. Just for clarification purposes, the report, says the chair. My question is as follows. Ultimately, the report that was just presented, will it include the proposal about the reforms of the agency as put forth by Mexico? I'm asking.
Chair, my report was an oral summary. The document itself shall contain all of the relevant documents. I inherited certain things from Mexico. I also inherited certain things that came in from the delegation of Mexico under their chairmanship. Let me be clear. And I also inherited certain items that came from the working groups. All of that should be attached, appended, serving as additional supporting information. I received a correspondence during my tenure in June. That letter too would be provided, and also my response there to that letter. Sir, what you will receive is a compendium of documents during the period up to 12/26, June 12th. Thank you.
Gracias,
Thank you, Ambassador, for that clarification. So we will reflect it in that manner. As there are no further requests for the floor, the council takes note of the report that was just presented. We now move on to consideration of the draft annual report of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, covering the period 2025-2026. This document is contained in document CD, Doc 485/26, Rev 1. It reflects the activities undertaken by the Council and its subsidiary bodies and the Executive Secretariat over this period of time, and will be sent to the General Assembly for its consideration according to the applicable provisions. Over this period of time, which covers the year between the 55th and 56th regular sessions of the General Assembly, the Council undertook substantive efforts. A number of monthly meetings were held, as well as formal joint meetings with the Permanent Council, and 2 extraordinary sessions were held, organized around 2 thematic areas in the first half of 2025. The first is capacity development to improve trade in the Americas, which led to a draft roadmap on the topic, and the second, during the first half of 2026, which is on energy security as a catalyst for sustainable development and economic prosperity. The period was marked, moreover, by major institutional milestones that are particularly relevant. Commemoration of the 30th anniversary of CD, celebrated in an extraordinary session under the topic CD 30 Years, Integral Development and Action, and the appointment of Ambassador Valois as Executive Secretary for Integral Development, approved by the Council in May of 2026, after the ending of the term of Kim Osborne. The report also relates the efforts of the subsidiary bodies during the 9 ministerial sectoral meetings that the Council supervises, between the period that was mentioned and the 10th Inter-American Meeting of Ministers and Maximum Authorities of Culture, and with the adoption of a Declaration and Plan of Action of Washington, D.C. There were also preparatory meetings working towards the 12th Inter-American Meeting of Ministers of Education, Quito, and work of Inter-American Committees on Sustainable Development, and Science, Technology, Tourism, Social Development, Ports. Institutionally, after the Council approved modification of the rules of procedure of CD, took note of the streamlining of mandates assigned by SEDI. For its part, the Executive Secretary continued implementing strategic lines in the area of economic inclusiveness, sustainable development, education, human development, decent work, cooperation for development, and ports under Unite SEDI. We put to the delegation's consideration of the draft annual report with the understanding that the Secretariat will incorporate any corrections in terms of form and style as necessary and in the translation process. If there are no observations, we will consider it so approved.
Pasamos ahora.
We will now move on to item 9 on the order of business, election of the members of the ICD Management Board for the 2026-2028 term. In accordance with Article 7 of the ICD statute and Article 1 of its rules of procedure, the Management Board is comprised of 9 member states elected by CD in accordance with the principles of rotation, equitable geographical representation set forth in Article 77 of the organization's charter. Pursuant to Article 7.2 of the statute, members serve for a term of 2 years, and election is held once a year during the regular meeting of CD prior to the General Assembly, such that vacancies are filled on an alternating basis. The Secretariat has received nominations submitted by the permanent missions of the following member states for the 4 existing vacancies: Uruguay, Ecuador, El Salvador, and Grenada. Pursuant to Article 7 of the ICD statute and Articles 1 and 2 of its rules of procedure, it falls to this council to elect the members of the Management Board, whose term of office shall begin on the date of their election and shall continue until the election of their successors. I submit for your consideration the candidacies of the aforementioned states for the 4 existing vacancies. If there are no objections, I ask that we consider these 4 delegations candidates to be elected by acclamation. We congratulate the elected member states and wish them every success in carrying out their duties in the service of hemispheric cooperation. We now turn to item 10 on today's order of business, other business. I would like to ask delegations if you have any informative business to share with the council. The Ambassador of Ecuador has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of the Republic of Ecuador would like to thank the Republic of Argentina, Brazil, Guatemala, St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the work they did as members of the Management Board of the ICD during the term that is now concluding with the implementation and supervision of the Plan of Action for Cooperation 2024-2027, amongst other decisive actions. We would also like to thank the work made by every single member of the agency. I wanted to thank the member states for the trust deposited in Ecuador as part of the Management Board of the agency for the 2026-2028 period, with the commitment to support the new members and existing members, the Uruguay, Grenada, and others. We are facing increasingly complex challenges. We need to have sustainable financing, identify sources of funding, mobilize partnerships with the private sector, and make sure that we can move forward with projects. We believe that it is important to strengthen institutional capabilities and to push for economic development and greater access to technology. It is important for the agency to commit to AI and technology, establishing specific measures for impact and the sharing of best practices amongst countries. We are clear that it is important to pursue plans of action where cooperation can be measured in integration of multiple actors. Ecuador will support all efforts that are geared toward improving the effectiveness and promote innovative financing mechanisms, broaden participation to new members, and consolidate tools to facilitate the sharing of information, best practices, and lessons learned. We believe it's important to have a constructive spirit as we address emerging issues. We have to ensure that everyone's work is part of teamwork. We have the agency and the management board have this esprit de corps, and in good faith, let's vote to ensure that this agency is an institution that is increasingly valuable to the member states. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of El Salvador has the floor. And thank you very much, Chair. We would like to thank the member states for the trust placed in our country and to become a part of the management board of the Inter-American Council for the ICD for the 2026-2028 term. We would also like to especially congratulate Ecuador, Grenada, and Uruguay for their election. El Salvador, through our own agency for international cooperation, takes on this role with a profound sense of responsibility and firm commitment to work jointly in strengthening inter-American cooperation for the well-being of present and future generations in the hemisphere. And this active role that we can play in the ICD to comply with and implement the mandates from the member states. We look forward to developing an integrated strategy that coordinates cooperation in a cross-cutting way across all pillars of the organization, where we can maximize limited resources and ensure better management. In the Cooperation Fund for Development and the CooperaNet platform to facilitate cooperation, and the creation of strategic partnerships that are focused on multi-actor development. Lastly, we reiterate our commitment to continue to contribute from our reality, experiences, and capabilities to strengthen joint, firm, and creative actions to guarantee hemispheric cooperation in favor of hemispheric cooperation. Thank you very much. Grenada has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Grenada expresses its sincere appreciation to the member states for the confidence placed in us through our election to the Management Board of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development. We also extend our gratitude to the outgoing members of the board for their service, leadership, and contributions during the past term in advancing the agency's important work. We look forward to working closely with our fellow board members, the Executive Secretariat, and all member states to strengthen cooperation and development and advance practical, results-oriented initiatives that benefit the peoples of our Americas. Grenada accepts this responsibility with gratitude and a strong commitment to constructive engagement. I thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Grenada. Uruguay has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. Uruguay also wishes to thank the members of the Management Board of the IACD for the work they've done, and also for the trust placed in Uruguay in its election to be a part of the Management Board. I wanted to affirm our commitment to work jointly with other members of the board as we seek to achieve the proposed objectives. Thank you very much. Thank you. And congratulations to all of those who have been elected for the new term at the agency. Don't leave. I've got about a 15-minute speech as I wrap up my chairmanship. No, I'm just joking. Before we conclude this meeting, and the final regular meeting of this chairmanship, I would first like to thank all the missions, delegations, delegates, ambassadors who have joined us and who have truly made my work easier. Without you, things would have been much more complicated. And of course, the mission that held 2 chairmanships in the first 6 months, I wanted to just simply say that they're all excellent professionals, and the secretariat, Isabel now, Barbara, who was there with us throughout in all of our activities, and the representatives of the departments who do excellent, spectacular technical work. Maclambrides, we've had him working overtime on the topic of energy. Jesus, I'm very bad with names, but you know, those who work in education, economic development, sustainable development, each and every one of you, thank you so very much. To Georgina, who has done absolutely spectacular work. I had already thanked the chair of the agency, of the committee, and all of those who have worked so very diligently over the months. I would also like to wish Isabel the greatest success as you take on your new role. As this is the final meeting, I would like to take a group photo if you're all willing, just so this would be an incredible souvenir for me. If you could all come over here, I think maybe this is the best spot for a photo.